Washington Post had a terrific article explaining how we are being monitored by what is called FBI's, quote, nationwide suspicious activity reporting initiative. Oh boy, how Orwellian does that sound? It apparently contains 161,948,000 suspicious activity files on tens of thousands of Americans, including your employment history, financial documents, phone numbers, pictures, and any other information that the authorities can gather on you. Here comes the twist: on people who have not been charged with any crime. They are just considered suspicious. I'm going to give you some details in a second that is going to blow your mind. First of all, if they use this in a way where they track people that is still Big Brother-ish, but can be justified, it would be a different question. For example, and they do sometimes, Memphis takes these funding that's supposed to be for terrorism, but in reality, since there aren't a lot of cases of terrorism in Memphis, they use it to track other people. And a cop will go around and they will, some of this technology was developed in Iraq and Afghanistan for the military. And they will have a camera on their cars and it will read all the license plates near them. And sometimes if a license plate comes up as someone who has not registered their car or has some problem with their license or has a warrant out for their arrest, it comes up immediately. So that's amazing technology. And then they go and they pursue that in an effort to reduce crime. Again, some people could say that's a violation of privacy and be against that. But if that's all they use it for, I can live with that a lot more. But they are not using it just for that. Okay. By the way, how many real arrests have there been using these methods and all these 161,000 files open? 5 arrests. And only 2 are related to, 2 separate cases related to actual terrorism. Okay? Of the 5 arrests that are not related to terrorism, 0 convictions. 0. Okay. So, and by the way, look, let me tell you the 2 success stories. In a Colorado fusion center, they're called fusion centers all throughout the country. There's all these different branches. In fact, there are 4,058 federal, state, and local organizations responsible for counterterrorism that do these fusion centers. An extra 935 of them have been open since 2001. In the Colorado Fusion Center, they found Najibullah Zazi. He was an Afghan-born U.S. resident planning to bomb the New York subway system. Great, okay? And mission accomplished, they caught him. In 2007, a Florida Fusion Center provided a vehicle ownership history used to identify and arrest an Egyptian student who later pled guilty to providing material support to terrorism, in that case, transporting explosives. Okay, so I think those 2 cases, from just those facts, are good, solid cases, okay? And then the 5 non-terrorism related ones got no convictions. Okay, so, again, by that self, no problem, right, in my opinion. Now, here's the problems. They're using it on people who they have no actual proof on, no reasonable suspicion, etc. I'll give you an example of a guy down here in Southern California. One of the local cops found him taking pictures, and the report describes him as a, quote, suspicious subject, taking photographs of the Orange County Sheriff Department fireboat and the Balboa Ferry with a cellular phone camera. In other words, he was taking a picture of the ferry with his cell phone. And he says, all right, well, that guy's suspicious. And then he said he received a call and then went to his car and then came back 5 minutes later. Yeah, somebody called him, right? And then he was joined later by other people, including another adult and 2 children. And then they took the ferry. Yeah, he was taking pictures of the ferry, and then the kids came and they went on the ferry. You know what happened to that guy? He joined the database. And it doesn't matter whether, even if they look at that case and go, there's nothing there, you're still in the database. And they don't take you out of the database for 5 years. And in that time, they then go, and all those people add your other information, your employment history, your records, etc. Here are some of the things that they found about that guy. If I could find my right place, there's a lot of stories here. After the suspicious activity report number 3821, they then would add multiple phone numbers for him, financial residential histories, employment history, multiple phone numbers, audio files, video from the dashboard-mounted camera on the police cruiser at the harbor when they took his picture. They got a picture of the guy, okay? They're doing a full-blown investigation of a guy who went on a ferry. Okay, it's crazy. And they have hundreds of thousands of these files on people who didn't do anything wrong. Now, other experts, CIA experts that worked there for 20 years, they say this is what they call resource inefficient. They said, look, the real cases come from tips that we get, okay? Even in those cases that involve the fusion centers, what really breaks the case is an informant. A lot of times those informants are overseas and they say, oh, there's a guy who reached out to us in Yemen or in Pakistan, he's planning to do this, and they go get him. The overwhelming majority of those cases, right? And he said, look, we get this information, what can we do about it? Every once in a while, like in New Jersey, they sound out releases saying there might be a threat on an important transit system. They're like, yeah, we've got a lot of important transit systems in New Jersey. What do you want us to do about it? It's not specific. And then they got specific information about guys that didn't do anything wrong. And okay, it gets worse. Not only can the FBI file these reports, but local police can. But not only can local police, your neighbor can turn you in. If your neighbor reports suspicious activity, then it goes in the file. It's crazy. I mean, that's East Germany. That's the old Soviet Union. Neighbors talking about suspicious activity, and then you go in a government file you can't get out of. All right, it gets worse. Then they bring in, since nobody knows how to do counterterrorism, they don't know how to do it in Oregon, they don't know how to do it in Memphis, because they haven't had that problem before. And every once in a while a case will pop up in Oregon, etc., right? But they're not equipped for it. So now there are this cottage industry of pseudo-experts who charge the government money to go give training. And these guys, not only do they not know anything about counterterrorism, they're putting out complete crap out there. Let me give you two examples. There's a guy named Walid Shubat. He was a Muslim who converted to Christianity. And he is warning people in these official gatherings that, quote, you need to look at the entire pool of Muslims in a community. So everyone who's Muslim is a suspect. They all go in the file. And he says further, you should tap the phones of their mosques and their student groups because you can, quote, find out a lot of information that way. That's not what the FBI suggests. That's not an official thing. You can't go into somebody's church or mosque or temple and tap their phones without a court order. Are you crazy? But that's what he's telling local authorities throughout the country. He brags about all the different places that he's given speeches in order to help this process. And then there's another guy, Ramon Montijo. He has taught classes on terrorism and Islam to law enforcement officers throughout the country. This is from the Washington Post. He says most Muslims in the United States want to impose Sharia law. Most Muslims. Where does he get that fact from? Nowhere. Makes it up. Here's his quote. They want to make this world Islamic. The Islamic flag will fly over the White House, but not on my watch. My job is to wake up the public and the first responders. They got these lunatics who think that the Muslims are going to take over the White House, giving speeches on how you should report suspicious activity of anyone who's Muslim and put them in the file. But look, that ain't going to create the problem. So that, people live with that, Americans live with that. Here's where they screwed up. First of all, in the existence of this, through 2005 and 2007, in places like Pennsylvania, they were looking into anti-war groups. They were looking at humanitarian groups. They've infiltrated them, put them in the file. Groups that were in favor of biking. I don't mean motorcycles. I mean biking to work. Okay? Again, that won't create a problem. Those are liberals. That never creates a problem. One of them made the mistake of starting a file on Tea Party groups. Ho, we got trouble. Look, if that gets blown up a little bit and people start talking about that, then the conspiracies will set in. And you don't need a conspiracy. This stuff is terrible. The United States government shouldn't be doing any of this stuff. You want to actually look into people that you have suspicion on? Real suspicion, reasonable, probable cause, reasonable suspicion, get court orders? Absolutely, that's your job. I want you to do that. I want to be safe. I don't want to get blown up by terrorists. But if you're just doing a fishing expedition on all these people, innocent Americans that did nothing wrong and put them in your system forever, that's Orwellian, man. That's not the kind of government we're in favor of. Now, finally, to give you a sense of how absurd this whole thing is, some of the fusion centers, including the one in Colorado, they don't have enough information to analyze it, the Colorado Information Analysis Center. So what are they looking into instead? Among the things they're looking into is illegal Craigslist postings, and my favorite, online World of Warcraft games. Now, is it illegal World of Warcraft? I didn't even know such a thing existed. But this is what our tax dollars are being used for. $31 billion dedicated to these programs to start files on innocent American citizens who never did anything wrong and to look into World of Warcraft. It's a disaster. Credit where credit is due. Washington Post, I beat them up a lot of times. Great story on this. And we got to take action on this, man. This is not what the United States of America is about. It's not what it should be about. You can't keep files on innocent Americans. It's crazy.